The sun hung low over the city of Orendale, casting long golden rays across the towering spires of the royal palace. Birds circled lazily above, their wings catching the fading light. Down in the bustling market streets, merchants called out their wares and children ran laughing between stalls. To anyone walking here, life seemed normal, even peaceful. But deep in the western forest, danger brewed that would change the kingdom forever. Far beyond the walls of Orendale, Princess Alara wandered too close to the edge of the whispering woods. She had always been adventurous, curious about the unknown, and today was no exception. The palace gardens, though beautiful, felt confined. She wanted to see the world beyond the walls, to hear the songs of the forest and touch the petals of flowers that grew untamed. She had begged the guards to let her ride her horse to the edge of the woods, promising to stay near the path. But now she was farther than she realized. Alara's golden hair shimmered in the sunlight as she moved through the dense trees. She could hear the faint trickle of a stream nearby and smiled. This was freedom. Her horse, a strong chestnut mare named Astra, followed faithfully, stepping carefully over roots and rocks. But the princess didn't notice the shadows shifting between the trees, the silent movements of the forest that were not meant to be there. Suddenly, a dark figure lunged from the shadows. A group of bandits, notorious for taking travelers and nobles alike, surrounded her. They were armed with knives and crude swords, their eyes glinting with greed. Well, what do we have here? One of them sneered. A little princess all alone in the woods. How lucky for us, Alara's heart raced. She reined Astra back and tried to find a path to escape. But the bandits had already blocked her way. Fear gripped her for the first time in her life, and she realized that no amount of royal privilege could protect her now. She thought about shouting for help, but the nearest guard was miles away, and no one could hear her in these dense woods. Just as one of the bandits raised his sword, a figure appeared at the edge of the clearing. He was tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in simple traveler's clothes with a sword slung across his back. His dark eyes were sharp, scanning the bandits without fear. He stepped forward confidently. "Leave her alone," he commanded. His voice was firm yet calm, carrying an authority that surprised even the princess. The bandits laughed, a harsh, cruel sound. "And who are you supposed to be? Some wandering fool? This isn't your concern." The stranger smiled faintly, a confident glint in his eyes. "I think you'll find it is my concern." With that, he drew his sword. The sunlight glinted off the blade as he moved with the skill of a seasoned fighter. The bandits attacked him together, but their coordination was poor. One by one they fell, disarmed or knocked aside until only their leader remained. He was bigger than the others, his movements sharper, but even he could not match the stranger's speed and precision. In a final swift move, the leader was disarmed and ran screaming into the forest, leaving the rest behind. Alara watched in awe. She had never seen anyone fight like that before. The stranger she had only just met had faced danger without hesitation, without fear. And now, standing before her, he offered a hand. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice steady, caring. Alara nodded, still catching her breath. "Yes, I think so. Thank you. I don't even know your name." "I'm Kale," he replied. "I was traveling through the forest when I saw your situation." "You shouldn't have come this far alone, Princess," Alara flushed. I wanted to see the forest." "I didn't think it would be dangerous," Kale chuckled softly. "The forest has its own dangers, and not all of them are visible. Come, I'll make sure you get back safely." They walked together through the winding paths, Astra following calmly behind them. The princess found herself talking to Kyle easily, as though she had known him for years. He had a way of listening, of making her feel safe without being overbearing. She learned that he was not a knight nor a noble, but a traveler who had seen many lands and faced many dangers. "You faced bandits before?" she asked, curiosity shining in her eyes. "More than I can count," Kyle admitted, "but it's not the fighting I enjoy. It's the people I can help along the way." Alara found herself smiling. "I've never met anyone like you. Most people in the palace think I'm fragile, that I can't handle much, but you treat me like a person, not a princess trapped in gold." Kale nodded. "Because you are more than a title. You're brave and kind. That's what matters, not what others say." The sun began to set as they neared the edge of the forest. The golden light bathed the trees, making them glow as if touched by magic. Kale led Alara safely back to the road that would take her home. She felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. She didn't want this adventure to end, yet she knew she was safe because of him. At the edge of the forest, Kyle stopped and turned to her. You should return to the palace now, he said gently. Your father will be worried. Alara hesitated. Kyle, will I see you again? He smiled faintly, a shadow of sadness in his eyes. Perhaps. But for now, go. Be safe, she nodded, mounting Astra once more. Thank you. For everything. Kale watched her ride away, the fading light highlighting her golden hair. He felt a strange pull in his chest, an unfamiliar feeling. He didn't know her well, and yet he knew she was remarkable. Someone worth protecting, not because she was a princess, but because of who she was. The next morning, the palace was in a state of chaos. King Aldrich had been informed that his daughter had been lost in the forest and rescued by a stranger. Guards, advisors, and servants all moved quickly, trying to ensure the princess's safety. But when the king learned who had saved her, his reaction was unexpected. You say, a human? The king asked, his brow furrowed. He had always regarded humans with caution, favoring knights and nobles of the realm over travelers and common folk. Yes, your majesty, a royal messenger replied. A young man named Kale. He fought bravely and ensured Princess Alara's safety. King Aldrich paced the room, his mind racing. His daughter had been in danger and a stranger had saved her. And yet Kale was no ordinary hero. He had displayed skill, courage, and intelligence beyond any ordinary human. Aldrich's thoughts turned darkly practical. In a world where alliances could shift with the smallest change, and threats lurked beyond every border, someone who could protect the princess was invaluable. He called for Princess Alara. She entered the throne room, still radiant despite the ordeal, her golden hair falling gracefully over her shoulders. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity and innocence, but also with the strength of someone who had faced danger firsthand. Father, she said softly, bowing respectfully. I am well, thanks to Kale. The king studied her carefully. Indeed, and I am grateful to him. He is exceptional. I would like to meet him. Ilara's heart skipped a beat. You mean, invite him to the palace? Aldrich nodded. More than that. Kale will dine with us tonight, and I expect him to remain as a guest for some time. There is much to discuss. The princess felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She remembered Kyle's words, his kindness and bravery. She hoped she would see him again soon, though she did not yet understand what her father intended. That evening, Kale was welcomed into the grand halls of Orendale. He was cautious, aware that he was stepping into a world very different from the open roads and forests he knew. But the king's gaze was sharp, evaluating, and Kale stood tall, meeting it without fear. The feast began, filled with lavish dishes, musicians, and the hum of courtly conversation. Yet all eyes turned to Kale, curious about the stranger who had risked his life for the princess. He remained humble, polite, and quiet, observing the customs with respect. When the meal concluded, King Aldrich rose, his voice carrying authority. Kale, you have shown great courage. You have saved my daughter's life. And for that I'm grateful. I offer you a place in my court, not as a servant or knight, but as someone my daughter can trust and rely upon. Kale bowed respectfully. Your Majesty, I am honored. I only did what anyone should have done, but I will serve as you wish. Aldrich's eyes softened slightly, but a glimmer of calculation remained. Good, and know this, Princess Alara's happiness is important, but her safety is paramount. I wish to see her matched with someone who can protect her and honor her. You understand, Kale? Kale's expression remained calm, though inside he felt the weight of the king's words. I understand, Your Majesty. Ilara, sitting beside her father, looked at Kale with gratitude and admiration. She sensed something unspoken in her father's words, but for now, she was just relieved that Kale was safe and near. Outside the palace, the night wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it a promise of adventures to come. Neither Kale nor Ilara knew the journey ahead, but fate had already begun weaving their paths together. The story of courage, trust, and the bonds between a human and a princess was only beginning. The morning sun shone through the tall windows of Orendale Palace, painting the grand halls with soft gold. Princess Alara was already awake, pacing her chamber, her thoughts swirling. The previous day's adventure still lingered in her mind, the fear, the adrenaline, and most of all, Kyle. She had never met anyone like him, someone so fearless, so kind, yet so humble. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. Enter, she called. The royal advisor, Sir Roderick, stepped in. Good morning, Princess. I hope you slept well. Ilara nodded, though she hardly had time to sleep. I did, thank you. Have you heard from my father? Sir Roderick's face was serious. Yes, His Majesty wishes to speak with you immediately. It seems your rescue has caused quite a stir in the court. Ilara's stomach tightened. I imagine it has. She smoothed her dress and followed Sir Roderick down the grand corridor. The hall was filled with courtiers, all whispering among themselves as they passed. Some glanced curiously at her, while others looked at Kale, who was quietly standing near the throne room, observing the palace with cautious interest. When they entered the throne room, King Aldrich sat on his massive chair, his posture firm and commanding. His expression was unreadable, a mixture of relief, pride, and careful calculation. Kale was already there, standing respectfully at a distance. Ilara, the king began, his voice steady. I trust you are unharmed. Yes, father, she replied, bowing slightly. Thanks to Kale, I am safe. She gestured toward him. He is the one who saved me. I am very grateful. Kale bowed his head politely. Your Majesty, I did only what anyone would have done. I am glad the princess is safe. The king's eyes narrowed slightly as if measuring every word. Indeed, courage is admirable. But courage alone does not guarantee loyalty or understanding of royal duty. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle in the room.
Kale, you are a human, a traveler from distant lands.
You are brave, yes. But do you understand the responsibilities you have taken upon yourself by saving my daughter? Kale met the king's gaze steadily. I understand that she is the princess, Your Majesty, and I would protect her to the best of my ability. I mean no disrespect. The king nodded, though his expression remained serious. Very well. Then you shall stay in the palace as a guest under observation. Your skills will be noted and your loyalty tested. You will have a chance to prove your worth. Ilara's heart sank slightly. She wanted to tell her father that Kale was already worthy, that she trusted him completely. But she remained silent, knowing it was not the time to argue. The days that followed were a mixture of wonder and challenge. Kale adjusted to life in the palace slowly. The grand halls, the intricate gardens, and the constant attention of courtiers were a stark contrast to the freedom of the forest. Yet, he adapted with quiet grace. He spent time with Ilara, helping her practice swordsmanship and teaching her simple survival techniques. Though she was a princess, she had always been curious about self-defense, and Kyle encouraged her, never treating her like a fragile noble. Their bond grew quickly, built on mutual respect and admiration. One afternoon, while walking through the palace gardens, Ilara spoke up. Kale, do you ever get tired of traveling? Of facing danger? Kale thought for a moment before answering. Sometimes. But danger is not always bad. It teaches you who you are, what you value, and it gives you purpose. Ilara smiled, intrigued by his perspective. I've never thought of it that way. The palace feels safe, but also limited. I want to see more, to learn more, and you seem to understand that. Kale looked at her, his dark eyes thoughtful. Because it matters who you are, not what walls surround you. You have courage, Ilara. You'll go far if you follow your heart and your mind together. Their conversation was interrupted by a royal herald, who announced a message from a neighboring kingdom. The king took it and read silently, then frowned. It seems there are troubles brewing in the north, he said. Bandits and rogue knights threaten the trade routes. Orendale may be called upon to assist, and we must prepare. Ilara's eyes widened. Will we send soldiers? Yes, the king replied. And perhaps more. Kale, your skills may be needed beyond these walls. You will accompany a scouting party to assess the situation. I expect a full report upon your return. Kale inclined his head. I understand, Your Majesty. Ilara felt a pang of worry. She did not want Kyle to leave, yet she knew he could not refuse a king's command. Please be careful, she whispered, her hand brushing against his arm. Kale smiled reassuringly. I will, and I will return. That night the palace was alive with preparation. Soldiers polished armor, inspected weapons, and packed supplies. Kale joined them, blending into the bustle despite being a guest. The king, however, had other plans. He summoned Ilara to his private chambers. Daughter, I must speak frankly, he said. Kyle has proven himself capable, brave, and intelligent. But a mere hero is not enough. I believe that he should be, more than a friend to you. I wish for him to be your betrothed. Ilara froze. The words hung in the air like a weight she could not lift. Father, what do you mean? I mean, the king continued, that Kale should be your husband. He has saved your life. demonstrated loyalty and proven his worth. A union between you will strengthen our kingdom and ensure your safety. Ilara's mind spun. She respected her father, but she had not expected this. She liked Kale, admired him, but marriage? So soon? And for reasons of duty rather than love? Her voice trembled slightly. Father, I don't know if I can decide that so quickly. The king's expression softened, but the firmness remained. Ilara, I understand your hesitation. But in times like these, decisions must be made for the good of the kingdom, not only for personal feelings. You will have time to know him better, but I insist that you honor this arrangement. Ilara bowed, though her heart was heavy. Yes, father. The next morning, Kale was informed of the king's decree. He stood silently in the garden listening to the royal messenger, his expression unreadable. When the messenger left, Ilara approached him. Kale, I'm sorry, she said softly. This is my father's decision, not mine. But I wanted you to know I trust you and I want to get to know you better, even if it's complicated. Kyle's gaze softened. Ilara, you need not apologize. I understand the king's concerns, and I will respect whatever path you choose. My only wish is your safety and happiness. Her heart lifted slightly at his words. She realized then that while her father's plans were imposing, Kale was different from the men of the court. He did not demand obedience. He offered understanding and respect. Days passed and the preparations for Kale's scouting mission began. He trained with the soldiers, tested their routes, and inspected the equipment. Ilara watched him closely, admiring his skill and focus. She also began to understand the weight he carried. Though he was brave, he was also alone in a world that was not his own. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ilara joined Kale in the training yard. He was practicing with his sword, precise and controlled, his movements like a dance. She could see the concentration in his eyes, the determination in his stance. You're incredible, she said quietly. Kale paused, wiping sweat from his brow. Thank you. But it's not about skill alone. It's about preparation, focus, and understanding the situation. Anyone can be brave, but not everyone can survive without thinking clearly. Ilara nodded, absorbing his words. I want to learn, Kale. Teach me how to be brave like you. He smiled faintly. Then we will start tomorrow. But remember, bravery is not the absence of fear. It is facing your fears and making the right choices despite them. As night fell over Orendale, Ilara lay in her chamber, staring at the ceiling. Her thoughts were filled with Kale, the forest, and the adventures that awaited. She understood now that life in the palace was only one part of a larger world, and Kale had opened her eyes to possibilities she had never imagined. Outside the walls, the wind whispered through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, dangers lurked, testing courage and wisdom. But for Ilara and Kale, a new chapter had begun. A chapter of trust, understanding, and the first sparks of something deeper than friendship. The king's plan was only the beginning, and the paths ahead promised challenges that would test both heart and mind. The morning air was crisp and filled with the scent of pine as Kale prepared for his first official mission from the palace. He checked his gear meticulously, his sword, bow, and a small pack containing provisions for several days. The soldiers assigned to him looked eager but wary. They had heard of Kale's bravery and skill, and a few were curious to see if the human truly matched the stories. Ilara arrived at the edge of the palace courtyard just as Kale was mounting his horse. Her golden hair shimmered in the sunlight, and her eyes reflected both worry and admiration. Kyle, she called softly. Be careful out there, please. Kale smiled reassuringly. I will, and don't worry, princess. I will return safely. She hesitated, then stepped closer, lowering her voice. I know my father insists on things about us. But I want you to know, I trust you, and I want to know you better no matter what happens. Kyle's expression softened. I am honored, Ilara, and I will honor that trust. You will see me return. With that, he rode out with his team, the palace gates closing behind them. As they moved toward the northern roads, Kyle observed the soldiers carefully. They were skilled, but many had grown complacent in the safety of the kingdom. He knew that scouting these lands would require vigilance and quick thinking. The journey was long and filled with challenges. Dense forests, rocky hills, and unpredictable weather tested the group, but Kale led them efficiently. He taught the soldiers how to move silently, how to detect signs of ambush, and how to ration supplies for longer missions. Despite the tension, Kale's calm presence inspired confidence. One afternoon, as the group navigated a narrow mountain pass, Kale signaled for them to stop. "Listen," he whispered. The wind carried a faint sound. Horses, armor clinking, voices low but urgent. Kale's sharp eyes scanned the horizon and spotted a small band of rogue knights moving in formation. They were clearly scouting the same area, likely planning attacks on nearby villages. "We cannot engage them head-on," Kale said quietly to his group. "We must observe and gather information. Know their numbers, their route, their intentions. Then we return to the king." The soldiers nodded, impressed by Kale's strategic thinking. He led them to a hidden vantage point atop a rocky hill, where they could watch the rogue knights without being seen. Kale took careful notes, sketching their positions, estimating their numbers, and noting the patterns of their movement. That night the camp was quiet except for the crackle of the fire. Soldiers took turns keeping watch while Kale sat slightly apart, reviewing his notes and planning their return route. He knew the information they carried was crucial for the safety of Orundale, and mistakes could cost lives. One soldier, a young man named Lior, approached him nervously. "Kale, sir, how do you stay so calm? Even with danger right in front of us, you never seem afraid." Kale looked up, his eyes reflecting the firelight. "Fear is natural, Lior. It tells you what to be cautious of. But courage is acting despite that fear. You must focus on your duty, and the people depending on you. That is what keeps me calm." Lior nodded, inspired by Kyle's words. Others around the fire listened quietly, realizing that the human had wisdom beyond his years. Meanwhile, back in Orundale, Princess Ilara tried to occupy her days with study, sword practice, and walks through the palace gardens. Yet her thoughts constantly returned to Kale and the dangers he faced. She feared for his safety but also found herself reflecting on her own courage. If Kale could face danger, so could she in her own way. Days passed and Kale's scouting party continued their observations. They encountered traps set by the rogue knights, discovered hidden paths, and gathered intelligence about enemy numbers and locations. Kale's leadership became more apparent with each passing day. Soldiers who had initially doubted him began to trust his judgment implicitly. One evening, as the group rested near a small stream, Kale noticed movement in the shadows. He raised a hand, signaling silence. From the trees emerged a young boy, no older than 12, holding a small bundle. His eyes were wide with fear. "Please, I mean no harm," the boy whispered. "I saw the knights. They attacked my village. My family, they—" His voice broke. Kale knelt down to the boy's level. "It's all right. We won't hurt you. Tell me everything you know. Where is your family?" The boy hesitated, then nodded. They took my parents. The knights said they would use them to force the villagers to pay tribute. I ran. I couldn't fight them alone." Kale's jaw tightened. "You did the right thing by coming here. We will help them." He turned to the soldiers. "We have a new mission. We must rescue this boy's family and stop the knights from harming more villages. But we must be careful. This is not just scouting anymore. It is a matter of life and death." The soldiers nodded, ready for action. Kale's confidence inspired them, and his plan was meticulous. They would approach under the cover of night, using the forest and terrain to their advantage. Kyle assigned roles, making sure each soldier knew exactly what to do. That night, under a moonless sky, Kyle led the group silently through the forest. The rogue knights' camp was visible ahead, their torches casting flickering light on tents and supplies. Kale signaled for 2 soldiers to flank the camp while the rest, including himself, approached from the front. Using a combination of stealth and strategy, they neutralized the guards silently, tying them up and ensuring no alarms were raised. Kale moved with precision, checking tents for villagers while his soldiers handled the others. Soon they found the boy's parents, frightened but unharmed. Tears of relief streamed down their faces as Kale reassured them. "We must leave quickly," Kale whispered. "Follow me and stay close." The group moved silently back through the forest, avoiding patrols and using hidden paths. Kale's leadership ensured that everyone remained safe, and by dawn, they were back on the main road, returning to Orundale with the rescued villagers. When they arrived at the palace, the king himself came to greet them. He studied Kyle with a new respect, observing how he had handled the mission. "You have done well, Kyle," Aldrich said, his tone carrying genuine approval. "Not only have you gathered valuable intelligence, but you have saved innocent lives. Your skill and courage are remarkable." Kyle bowed humbly. "Your Majesty, it was necessary." Lives were at risk, and I could not stand by. The rogue knight's plan must be stopped before it spreads further. Ilara, who had watched from a distance, ran to Kale, her eyes shining. "You're back!" "And everyone is safe." She threw her arms around him in a quick hug. "I knew you would come back. I'm so proud of you." Kyle smiled softly, a rare warmth touching his eyes. "I promised, didn't I?" The king's gaze softened slightly as he watched them. He realized that Kale was more than a capable warrior. He was honorable, kind, and trustworthy. Qualities that were rare and invaluable, especially for someone who might one day share a life with his daughter. That evening, a feast was held to celebrate the safe return of Kale and his party. The villagers told their story, praising Kale and the soldiers for their bravery. Ilara listened intently, her admiration for Kale growing with each word. She began to understand that the bond between them was not just of necessity or duty, but of genuine respect and shared courage. As the night drew to a close, Ilara and Kale found themselves alone in the palace gardens once more. The moonlight bathed the fountains and flowers in silver, creating a serene and quiet world away from the grandeur of the halls. "Kale," Ilara said softly, "you've shown me what courage truly means. Not just fighting, but protecting, helping, and leading with care. I'm glad you came into my life." Kyle looked at her, his expression serious but gentle. "And I am glad I met you, Ilara. You are strong, smart, and brave. You inspire me just as much as I hope to inspire you." They stood together, the night air cool and calm. Both knew the king's decree still loomed over them, but for the first time Ilara felt a sense of hope. Perhaps with time, their connection could grow into something more than duty. Perhaps it could become something they both wanted. Outside the palace walls, the wind carried the distant sounds of the forest and the roads beyond. The world was vast, full of challenges and dangers. But for now, Kyle and Ilara had proven that courage, trust, and determination could overcome even the most difficult obstacles. Their journey was far from over, yet the bond they were forging promised strength, partnership, and the possibility of something extraordinary. The sun rose over Orendale, casting a warm glow over the city and palace. After returning from the scouting mission, life seemed to resume its ordinary pace, but for Princess Ilara and Kale, nothing felt ordinary. The events of the past weeks had changed them both. The princess had seen bravery, loyalty, and compassion in Kale, while Kale had observed strength, intelligence, and kindness in Ilara. Their connection deepened quietly, like roots intertwining beneath the soil. Ilara walked through the palace gardens in the early morning, the dew sparkling on the leaves. She carried a small book, a diary she had started to record her thoughts. It was a habit she had never had before, but after meeting Kyle, she realized she wanted to remember everything, every lesson, every smile, every moment that felt extraordinary. As she turned a corner, she saw Kale training with some of the palace guards. His movements were precise, almost effortless, and the guards watched with respect. Even from a distance, Ilara could sense the calm authority he carried. She stepped closer, and Kale noticed her immediately. He lowered his weapon and smiled, sheathing his sword. "Good morning, Princess," he said, bowing slightly. "Good morning, Kale," she replied, smiling. "Are you always this busy?" Kyle chuckled. "There is always work to do, but I find time for what matters." His eyes met hers, and for a brief moment the world seemed to shrink to just the two of them. Ilara walked closer, holding out her diary. "I wanted to show you something. I started writing about everything we've done, about the forest, the mission, and you." Kyle took the diary gently, flipping through a few pages. He looked impressed, not just by the writing, but by the honesty in her words. "You've put a lot of thought into this," he said. "It shows courage in another way. Courage to face your own feelings and thoughts." Ilara blushed. "I guess. I just wanted to remember. And I wanted you to know. I trust you." Kale's expression softened. "And I trust you, Ilara, more than anyone I've met." Their conversation was interrupted by a loud knock at the palace gates. A messenger arrived, carrying news from the northern villages. The rogue knights Kale had tracked were growing bolder, raiding villages and taking more hostages. King Aldrich read the report and frowned, his face tight with concern. "Kyle," the king said, his voice commanding, "your scouting mission has revealed troubling news. We cannot wait for these knights to strike again." You must lead a group to confront them directly, to protect our people and end their raids. Kyle bowed. I understand, Your Majesty. We will act swiftly and with care. Alara stepped forward, her hands clenched slightly.
Kale, be careful.
I don't want to imagine anything happening to you. Kale smiled reassuringly.
I will be fine, Princess.
And I promise I will return. The following days were a whirlwind of preparation. Soldiers trained harder, weapons were sharpened, and Kale strategized tirelessly. He knew the rogue knights were dangerous and clever, but he also knew that with careful planning they could be stopped. Alara, unable to bear staying idle, begged her father to allow her to assist. Father, I can help. I may not be as skilled as Kale, but I can ride, I can observe, and I can learn from him. King Aldrich considered this, seeing the determination in his daughter's eyes. Very well. You may accompany a small group under Kale's supervision, but you must not take unnecessary risk. Alara's heart leaped with excitement. She would be near Kale again, learning from him directly, and perhaps in this shared danger their bond could grow stronger. When they set out toward the northern villages, Kale noticed Alara's cautious yet confident presence. She had listened, observed, and learned quickly. Her eyes were sharp and her instincts were improving. He knew she was brave, but seeing her now, actively participating, reinforced just how capable she truly was. The journey to the rogue knight's territory was tense. Every rustle of leaves, every distant noise set the group on edge. Kale maintained a careful calm, guiding them silently and efficiently. At night he spoke quietly to Alara about tactics, observation, and the importance of patience. You must understand, he said, courage alone will not win battles. Strategy, timing, and knowing the terrain are just as important. Even the strongest knight can fall if they act recklessly. Alara listened intently, absorbing every word. I understand, Kale. I want to be ready. To help, not just follow. Kale nodded, pleased. That is exactly what I want you to learn. One evening, as they camped near a stream, Kale noticed Alara looking troubled.
What's on your mind?
He asked. She hesitated, then said softly, I worry. About my father, about the marriage he insists on. I respect him, but I want to choose who I am with, Kale, and I don't know how to tell him that. Kale's expression grew thoughtful. You will find a way, Alara. Your father loves you, even if his methods are strict. Trust in your courage, and he will see that your choice matters too. Alara looked at him, grateful for his wisdom and support. Thank you, Kale. I don't know what I would do without you. Kale smiled faintly. And I am grateful to be here with you. The next day they arrived near the rogue knight's camp. Kyle surveyed the area carefully, noting the guards, their positions, and the patrol patterns. He devised a plan that relied on stealth and surprise, minimizing risk to the villagers and his soldiers. Alara, watching closely, absorbed every detail. She followed Kale's instructions perfectly, signaling when a guard was approaching and helping the group navigate hidden paths. Her courage and quick thinking impressed Kale beyond measure. When the group finally struck, it was precise and effective. Guards were disarmed without raising alarms. Hostages were freed and the rogue knights were forced to retreat. Kale led the team with unwavering focus, ensuring everyone's safety while achieving their goal. After the mission, as they returned to Orendale, the villagers expressed their gratitude. Alara saw the impact of Kale's leadership and bravery firsthand. People were safe, lives were saved, and hope had been restored. That night under the stars, Alara and Kale walked alone through the quiet camp. Kyle, she said softly, you've shown me what it truly means to lead. Not just with strength, but with care and wisdom. I want to be like that too. Kyle looked at her, admiration and warmth in his eyes. And you will, Alara, you already are in many ways. Courage is not measured by how many battles you win, but by how you face life and help others. Alara smiled, feeling a deep sense of connection. I think I am learning, Kyle, because of you. Kyle reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. And I am learning too, Alara, about trust, courage, and about what truly matters in life. As they returned to the palace, both felt a quiet understanding growing between them. The king's decree still loomed, but the bond they were forging was beyond duty or obligation. It was built on respect, admiration, and the beginnings of something far more meaningful. Orendale welcomed them back with relief and celebration. King Aldrich studied Kyle closely, noticing the way Alara's eyes followed him, the way she spoke of him with respect and admiration. Though the king had his own plans, he began to see that the human hero was more than capable, not only in battle but in heart and character. Alara, standing beside Kale in the palace gardens, felt a mixture of excitement and hope. Their adventures had proven their courage and skill, but they had also shown that trust and understanding could grow even in challenging circumstances. As night fell, the palace lights glimmered like stars, reflecting the possibilities of the future. Kale and Alara had faced danger, shared knowledge, and discovered mutual respect. The journey ahead would test them further, but for now they found comfort in each other's presence, ready to face whatever came next, together. The morning sun rose over Orendale with a gentle warmth, spilling light across the palace walls. After weeks of challenges, battles, and quiet moments of connection, Princess Alara and Kale stood together on the palace balcony, overlooking the city. Their shared experiences had created a bond deeper than either could have anticipated. But now the time had come to confront the future that awaited them, shaped by duty, family, and the unexpected power of their hearts. King Aldrich summoned them to the throne room. His presence was commanding, yet there was a softness in his eyes born from concern and love for his daughter. Alara, he began. Kale, he addressed the human hero. You have both demonstrated extraordinary courage, wisdom, and loyalty. But it is time we discuss what comes next. Alara's heart thumped. She knew this conversation could decide the course of her life. She glanced at Kale, who met her gaze calmly, offering silent reassurance. The king continued. Kale, you have proven yourself not only a capable warrior but a man of integrity, and Alara, you have shown wisdom and bravery beyond your years. I had intended for you to marry Kyle, to secure the safety and future of my daughter and kingdom. But I have watched you both carefully. I see now that a union should be built on choice, trust, and mutual respect, not obligation. Alara's eyes widened. Could it be? After all the fear that her father's decree might control her life, he now spoke of choice. Kale bowed respectfully. Your Majesty, I would never force the princess to marry me. My honor lies in serving and protecting her regardless of her decision. The king's gaze softened further. Good. That is what I wish to hear. Alara, the choice is yours. You have seen Kyle in battle, in thought, and in kindness, but it is your heart that must decide. Alara's thoughts raced. Weeks ago she had been scared, alone in the forest, unsure of herself. Now she had grown, not just in courage, but in understanding what she wanted from life. Kale had taught her bravery, respect, and the value of trust. He had never demanded anything, yet he had earned her admiration, her friendship, and her heart. She turned to Kale, taking a deep breath. Kyle, I trust you. I respect you, and I care for you more than I can explain. Kale's dark eyes softened, reflecting both relief and joy. Alara, I feel the same. My time with you has been remarkable. You inspire me, challenge me, and make me want to be better. I would be honored to share my life with you, but only if you choose it freely. Alara smiled, her eyes bright. Then I choose to be with you. Not because of duty, not because of fear, but because I want to. The king nodded, a proud smile breaking across his face. Then it shall be as you wish. A union not of obligation, but of choice. May your partnership be strong, and your hearts true. With the king's blessing, Alara and Kale began the preparations for their official engagement. The palace was alive with celebration. Courtiers, soldiers, and villagers all honored the courage and choices of the two who had proven themselves in the face of danger. Yet amidst the festivity, Alara and Kale remained grounded, focused on one another and the life they were about to build together. In the weeks that followed, they trained together, shared stories of their pasts, and explored Orendale's hidden corners. Kale showed Alara the forests he had traveled, teaching her to move quietly and observe nature with care. She revealed the palace's secret chambers, showing him places few had ever seen. Every shared experience strengthened their bond. Making them more than allies, they were partners, equals in heart and mind. One afternoon, Kale led Alara to a hill overlooking the northern valleys, the same lands where he had first faced the rogue knights. This is where it all began, he said quietly, watching the wind ripple through the grass. The place where danger brought us together. Alara leaned against him, her hair catching the sunlight. And now it is the place where we choose our future. Everything we faced, everything we learned, it led to this moment. Kale smiled, taking her hand gently. I promise to stand by your side in peace and in challenge for as long as I live. Together we will face whatever comes. Alara squeezed his hand, her heart full. And I promise the same, Kale. Together. The engagement ceremony was simple yet meaningful. No extravagant displays or unnecessary grandeur, just the presence of those who mattered most. The king stood proudly beside his daughter, giving her the freedom she had always deserved. Kale knelt before her, offering a small handcrafted ring, a symbol of trust, courage, and choice. Alara accepted it with joy, slipping it onto her finger. As they rose together, the palace erupted in celebration. Music filled the halls, laughter echoed through the gardens, and the people of Orundale rejoiced. But amidst all the festivity, Alara and Kale found quiet moments to reflect, to speak of dreams, hopes, and the life they would share. Days turned into weeks, and their partnership grew stronger. Kale continued to advise the king on matters of security and strategy, his insight proving invaluable. Alara continued her studies, learning diplomacy, leadership, and the nuances of courtly life, all guided by her own curiosity and by Kale's encouragement. Together they balanced duty with personal growth, forging a relationship built on trust, respect, and love. One evening, as the sun set over the palace, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Alara and Kale walked through the gardens. The air was calm, filled with the scent of blooming flowers. Kyle, Alara said softly, I never imagined my life would change so much in just a few months. I was scared, lost, and now I feel strong, ready for anything because of you. Kale smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. And I never imagined I would find someone like you. Brave, wise, and kind. You have taught me as much as I have taught you, Alara. Our journey together has only just begun. Alara laughed softly, the sound carrying a lightness she hadn't felt before. Then let's continue it together. No matter what challenges come, we face them side by side. Kyle nodded, his eyes reflecting determination and love. Side by side, always. In the weeks that followed, Kale and Alara continued to strengthen their bond. The kingdom recognized their partnership as one of mutual respect, courage, and vision for the future. Together, they worked to protect Orundale, support the people, and ensure peace throughout the land. And though their story had begun with danger, uncertainty, and duty imposed by others, it had blossomed into a story of choice, trust, and the power of hearts united by understanding and respect. On the day of their formal marriage, the palace was filled with joy. Friends, family, villagers, and soldiers gathered to witness the union of a princess and a human who had proven himself in courage and character. The ceremony was heartfelt, emphasizing love, choice, and commitment rather than obligation. Alara looked at Kyle as he took her hand. I choose you, Kale, not because I must, but because I want to. I choose our life together. Kyle smiled, his hand steady around hers. And I choose you, Alara, for everything you are, everything you will be, and everything we will face together. The king watched them, pride swelling in his chest. He had learned that love and trust could not be commanded, only nurtured. And in this moment he knew his daughter's happiness and the kingdom's future was secure. As the sun set over Orundale, casting golden light over the city and palace, Kale and Alara stood together, their hearts united, ready for whatever adventures lay ahead. The forest, the battles, the challenges, they had faced them all and emerged stronger. And now together they could face anything the world had to offer. Their story had begun with a rescue, and it ended with a choice born of courage, respect, and love. And in that choice, both Kale and Alara found not only each other but a future filled with hope, partnership, and the promise of endless possibilities.